Great to see you. Here I am outside. There's machines across the road and, well, there's a breeze and the sun is out. Let me just show you the world before I go in and do my rave to tell you what I've been doing this morning. There's stuff happening here. So, the lawns, this part of the lawn hasn't been mowed, but I did get around with the weed eater. You can see the edges have been done. And in amongst the crazy, we have some really bright miniature roses. This one even has a name. It's called Hokitika. And there is a place in New Zealand, on the South Island, I'm in the North Island, where the sunsets are pretty much that bright. So they named it after the colour of the sunsets. And here's the Aucuba. That's also very, very bright and beautiful. And look, there's a little fly just doing its business there. They've actually got striped jackets on. You probably can't see, but they've got these orangey brown eyes and striped jackets, and they're quite pretty. And the roses are coming out, and the Cineraria are still here. And yes, there's some tall grass. I need to pull that out. But what's really nice, I wonder if I can put my foot in here, is this thing. Hi Laurie, I'm happy you caught me live too. Yay! I'm just doing the garden tour. I don't know what this plant is. I saw it growing, beside the street somewhere a few years ago, and I took some cuttings because I really liked it, and those flowers smell really good. I actually noticed it smell when I walked past it. And I'm terribly glad that I did take cuttings and that they struck, because the tree was pulled out a few years later. The section it was on got developed. So now I have it. Oh look, there's a little shield bug down there. A little brown shield bug. They go green, depends what they eat, I suppose, or maybe how old they are. So the thing that happened last weekend is I put something in here. I actually put several somethings in, but this is one of them. And yeah, I know the Cineraria are amazing, and the roses grow through them, and well, touch wood, look, these leaves are still green. They haven't all gone black spot and fallen off yet, which is really nice, because generally they do. So I don't know how far the Wi-Fi is going to go, but see down there behind the tall red-leaved spires of the cotinus, there's actually another one of those things that I just planted. I showed you up the top. There's two things that I planted there actually. And let me get closer. We have the Lotus Lake Pelargonium, which I really love. It just makes clouds of these orange flowers, and they look great next to the purple Cineraria, which looks great next to the yellow of the Aucuba. And I mean, what's missing in this picture? Nothing. It's really rather lovely. Still got really long lawns. Haven't done the middle of the lawn, just the edges. So the roses are coming out, which is nice. And there's another fuchsia. It's a good year. I think we're finally not having endless rain. Although I'm probably going to be wishing that it would endlessly rain in a month if it gets too dry. So there's another one that I just planted in here. Left that one tall because it needs to grow to be taller than everything that's around it. And there's another one somewhere else. Oh yeah, here. See those brown sticks? So I got these things, and one plant became 4, and I put them in, and well, the Luculia are sprouting away. I have to keep pruning it, or it just goes up and gets spindly. And look, the cherry's finishing, but there are still a few blooms. And you're right, it is beautiful, Laurie. The sky is so blue, and the contrasts are glorious. So that's the garden, really. It's all very long and lush and meadow-like, and I am looking forward to getting the lawns cut, but we have had other priorities. Oh, I nearly forgot the magnolia, for goodness sake. Who could forget this? It's still fabulous. So, that's the garden. I'm going to take you inside and tell you what I did this week, because I got to the computer on time, and I sat down, and I started by, of course, orienting myself by looking at what I did last week. That's just the pattern I've got onto, that I open up where I was and I look back over it, and I teased some bits out and made them better. told the story slightly differently and thought, oh yeah, that's better, it doesn't miss anything out. Because I'm always mindful that this information is going to be presented on a website, which means that people can go, I imagine a screen with a chunk of information, and then you go next and you get another one because it's on a mobile phone, right? Desktop, cool, but I'm thinking mobile, so small chunks that you swipe through, and you can go backwards and forwards, and there'll be links to connect you from here to here in this little piece. So it'll be a lot like a brain where everything is connected and interconnected, and you can go, in many different directions. I've always imagined it like that. So I want each little piece to be complete and clear within itself. And so when I've managed to write something, the next week when I go back and look at it, almost without fail, I will find ways to improve it a little bit, to get it a little bit better. And I mean, that's just the writing process. You never get it right the first time. You just, you start and then you improve. So here's my little notebook. Because what else? I can't look at the screen while I'm talking to you. I need to use old text so I know what to tell you. So what I did was I finished the little piece that I've called How We Learn. Now, of course, I have not at all said everything about how we learn, but I've told a story. I've made it simple. And then I know I spent, I don't know, I don't watch the clock, I'm in a process, but I spent quite a bit of time thinking, now what's the next piece? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And I must have pulled myself out of 3 or 4 or 5 different rabbit holes that I could have gone down, because I thought, what's the question that I am trying to answer? And the question that I have been trying to answer is, what do emotions have to do with learning? Because you may recall from the last time that I talked about the difference between feelings and emotions, and how you take a feeling and a feeling and a feeling and a feeling, and you can have all these feelings in your body, but until you actually notice all the feelings and decide, oh, I feel afraid, or I feel angry, or I feel happy, or I feel delighted, they're just bodily sensations. So feelings add up to emotions. And in my writing, this is the first time I've used the word emotion, precisely because there's this distinction between them, and I didn't want to have to unpack that distinction until now. So I finished unpacking that distinction, and of course I'm unpacking it in the context of learning, and there are 2 ways that we learn. One way that we learn is when we take in new information, like going to a class or reading a book or watching a video, and you think, oh, that's cool, and you remember it. I mean, you can watch something or read it and think it's cool, but unless you do something with that information, unless you apply it or you remember it, you go back over it or whatever, it's just information, and you're not going to remember it. It's not going to stay wired in your brain. You actually have to use and apply information and to have some kind of experience with it before you can remember it. We just don't remember things that come and go and we pay no attention to them. So I talked about that last week. And so that's called semantic learning, is when we are learning information, it is semantic learning. But there's another way of learning, and that is episodic learning, and that is learning through experience. And the thing about learning through experience is that you're not going to remember everything you experience, because even though your brain, this is a fact that I looked, your brain it has the space to store at least a petabyte of information. And what's a petabyte, you say? Well, a petabyte, if you know a terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes, and a gig is 1,000 megabytes, it's a reasonable chunk of data. It used to be, oh my God, a terabyte, it's enormous. Now it's just whatever. But 1,000 terabytes is a petabyte. It's a lot of information. And we have the ability to store at least that much information in our brains, and it's because we have all these neurons, and they make so many different connections. You remember, your neurons can connect from anything to 10,000 to 100,000 to even some neurons, 1 million other neurons inside your brain. It's a shocking number of connections, given the electrical nature of them, quite literally shocking. And so we store all this information, but all the same, there is a limited amount of information storage available. So the brain has to say, well, of these experiences, what am I actually going to remember? And the way that it decides is actually about what's emotional and what isn't. Let me just read this. Remembering has, yes, can remember nothing, but not as easily with just information. Yeah, because you use the sound and the words and the meaning that you assign to them, and the fact that you like the song. And you can probably, with some songs, you know, we all have a song or a piece of music where we think, I know where I was and who I was with and what I was doing, and it's all wired together with all those different connections between the different parts of our brains that recorded that experience when we were having it. So it's not just what we see, it's the sound, it's the vision, it's the touch, it's the taste, it's the smell, it's everything. So yeah, exactly, you're right, Laurie. So we learn by semantically by learning and remembering and repeating things and study, if you like, but we also learn by experience, and our brain decides what it's going to remember and what it's not going to remember based upon our emotional response to it. So I was trying to explain that this week. You think, well, how do you do that? And why would we have some emotions, some experiences be really emotional? Hi, Geraldine. Why would some experiences be really emotional and others not? And how do you explain that? So that was what I was unpacking. And honestly, I probably only wrote this much. I mean, I sub-edited a lot of stuff, you know, from the previous stuff that I did last week, and I'm always sort of looking at other bits and making sure everything matches up. But that was the new content, and the reason why it takes time is because I'm trying to tell a really simple, clear story. So there's and I think I mentioned that there's a central character that I refer to in God of Me, let's just say it, on the site. One of the central characters that I refer to, because there will be a few, I'm sure. There's this cave woman, and she's a member of a family, you know, and she has this experience where she survives an attack from a large cat. I don't even want to say a saber-toothed tiger. Probably it would be that, but you know, if you're not anywhere in front of a computer screen or have the experience of knowing what a saber-toothed tiger is, that could be confusing. Just a large predatory cat. So she survives there and she gets PST. But the reason why she survives it is because her father also survived and escaped a similar experience. And he told her, you need to smell for this. If you see this, if you experience this, you need to run for your life. And it was his passed down information that saved her life, because it was logged in her brain, and the part of the brain that is constantly scanning the environment for danger actually recognized the danger before intellectually and consciously she ever did. It's called the amygdala. It's an amazing part of the brain. So, you know, it's precognitive. It's actually ahead of us. So her father had the experience of surviving the attack of the cat. Her father also had the experience of seeing his children born. Now, that would be, you feel a lot of at least satisfaction or pride, if not love. Bear in mind, this is a caveman and his family, you know, 200, 300,000 years ago. I don't want to extrapolate what kind of emotions would exist there, but there would be pair bonding. There would be all the emotions that you would expect with the production of offspring. And then I thought, well, what's another thing that this man would feel strongly about? Well, it would be if he'd gone out to hunt, and they're hunter gatherers and they live in the bush and there's a savannah nearby. But he goes out and he hunts and he kills a big beast. It's not a small one, it's big. And how much satisfaction and maybe even pride would he feel? And if it had been a while since he'd been able to kill an animal, wouldn't he also feel relief? And just, you know, these are all the basic experiences that anyone can relate to, and the strong feelings that would go with them. So talk about that. And then the point being, and I can't even remember right now, my brain's gone blank about, there's a bit in the middle which I'll probably remember later. But the point being that all of those situations are strongly charged emotionally, whether positively or negatively, you notice, because they relate to the survival of Amma's father. He survived the cat, he got away, he probably felt an enormous amount of panic, maybe terror, maybe even rage when he was doing that, and then relief afterwards. And he remembered everything about it and he passed it on to his family. That's what happens, because it was so emotionally charged. It was important for his survival. Hi Mike, hi Julian. See, we're wired for this. So he had all those emotions. It was a survival situation. When the child is born, that's the survival of the species. We are evolutionarily wired to survive and to reproduce. And so, there's a hormonal response that happens both in both parents when a child is born. It's just we're wired. There's the bonding that takes place so that the parents are wired hormonally and neurologically. They're set up to care for that offspring so that it survives. If there's no bonding, there's less motivation and desire to keep that little person alive until they're big enough to contribute to the tribe. That's just how it works. So strong emotions, and bringing home that big kill, especially if the family's been hungry for a while. Strong emotions, because now the family gets to survive. All of our strong feelings are actually about survival. And then you think, well, that's fine, but I don't live in a cave. What are you talking about? So then I draw another example and I say, well, let's say you and your friend are having an argument. This is the piece that I missed. See, it's come back to me now. And you're having an argument and you're noticing that your shoulders are tight, your forehead's tight, and you're feeling kind of hot, hot under the collar. There's a reason why, and those are feelings. The tight shoulders are feelings. The tight forehead is a feeling. The heat is a feeling, and that is, it's a feeling. It's something physiological that your body is doing. But there comes a point when you're arguing with your friend and you think, shit, I feel angry. And those feelings, when you identify them as an emotion, that's an emotion. So you take a feeling and a feeling and a feeling and a feeling and you add it up and you get an emotion. Physical sensation, visceral body sensations add up. When we interpret them, they become an emotion. So the reason why you feel angry in that situation is because your friend is actually being abusive and rude and saying unkind things to you, and so it feels like a threat to your survival. They're not waving a knife at you, but because you have this friendship and you have a certain expectation of how they behave to you, now they're behaving unpredictably and not like you expect, hopefully, and that is a threat to what you expect in the world. It's something unknown, unpredictable, potentially scary. It's your brain, the amygdala, the part of your brain that scans the environment for threats or things that it might need to respond to, says, hang on, this isn't what I expect from my friend. This could be danger. And so you have a choice. You get angry because you go into the fight response, or you back down because you go into the flight response, or you actually just freeze completely. Those are the three choices we have in survival. On the other hand, if you and your friend are having a loud argument, but it's about an intellectual topic and neither of you cares, you're just really enjoying picking the thing apart and, you're having a good time, you're having a good time. It doesn't matter. And I used another example. Let's say that a person needs some clothing. They don't have clothing and they can't afford to pay for it. So they're in a troubled situation, and then somebody gives them the clothing that they need. Now, what are they going to feel? They're going to feel gratitude. They're going to feel relief. They're going to feel like their life and their ability to survive has been supported and aided and made more. But if you take that same person and you make it that they have lots of clothes, they got a wardrobe full of the things. In fact, the wardrobe is too full. Now somebody gives them clothing and it's like, oh, well, so what? It's not important. It's not emotional. It's another piece of clothing, unless they think, oh God, where am I going to put this? So it isn't actually the situation. I mean, I think just about anybody gets stressed if someone points a gun at you with intent to shoot you. But most of the time, it isn't the situation, it's how we perceive it. That word perception is really important. And I've just remembered, I need to actually point that out in the writing. It's something I've forgotten. I hope I'll remember it next week. It's how we perceive it. It's how, our brain does pattern matching. It's scanning things for things in the environment that it would recognize as dangerous. Just like Alma's brain had learned from her father. Alma had learned from her father that if you see paw prints like this, and if you smell a funny smell, And maybe if the bush is a bit quiet, you better be careful because there's a big cat somewhere close by and it might be just about to try and kill you. So we have that, stimulus and response. There's a pattern and we recognize it. So when we recognize something in our environment as either really good for our survival or really bad for our survival, that's when we have a powerful emotional response. That's it. That is how we are wired. We are wired to survive. And anything that we perceive as negative, detrimental to our survival, or helpful to our survival, we are going to respond to. If it's just whatever, it's whatever. And those things, the things that we think are detrimental to our survival, we're going to pay attention to them. And we're going to remember them and we're going to learn them. Because we need to know them the next time. And we need to tell anyone else that we care about, hey, you need to watch out for this. Modern day example, hey, I got scammed by blah, blah, blah. Make sure you don't get scammed by blah, blah, blah. We learned it was an unpleasant experience. So we pass the experience on to others so that as a species, we have a better chance of surviving. Emotion is about survival. And it also helps us learn for that reason. And that is why you can have one very powerful emotional experience, either positive or negative, and it can change you for life. Because it commands all of your brain's attention. And remember, you're feeling it in your body, right? If you're feeling absolute joy, your whole body comes alive. Your whole body just wants to, hug the world or whatever it is. You feel it in every cell. And so it's not just up here. Feelings are here. Emotions are here. And then your brain is going to say, oh, this is awesome. I need to remember this. I need to try and make this happen again. This is awesome. Let me know how this is working so I can have this happen again because I love this. Because it makes me feel so good. That's why we do anything, by the way, is for the feeling. Good, bad, or indifferent. So it remembers all of that. It remembers the positive experiences. And that's why you remember really good experiences because they stick out to you as being so good and they feel good and we like to remember feeling good. And in exactly the same way, we remember the bad experiences and all of the details because in our brain, we are evolutionarily wired to do that so we can try to avoid having the same thing happen again. Of course, the problems happen because the amygdala, there's two of them, they're about here, but they're in your brain, and they're part of there's the walnut, the neocortex. They're not part of the neocortex. There's the emotional brain, which is inside, and they're part of that. But this is the part of the brain which it has 4 areas, and I've got to try and remember this. There's one area for anger, there's one area for fear. That's right, the third area is for pain. Although there's no one pain center in the brain. Don't get mixed up about that. Pain is not localized. And the fourth area is for joy. And that all happens in the amygdala. Not the only place that it happens, but the amygdala it recognizes these things, good, bad, or indifferent. It says, oh, okay, I should be feeling pain about this. I should be feeling anger about this. I should be feeling fear about this. Or I should be feeling joy about this. Same mechanism, different response, different results. I'm going to check the time. I'm out of time. I should stop. But you see, that's what I'm unpacking, and I've got to keep it simple. And I've got to unpack it, and I've got to keep it simple. And it's this constant process inside my head of, is this too much? Am I going down a rabbit hole? Keep it simple. Keep it clear. And that's the journey. That's God and me. So thank you for joining in with me today. I love having you on. It's interesting. I have a feeling that you're writing, and Facebook sometimes doesn't show me your comments, but if you do comment, I will always reply to you later. Thank you for joining. It's so nice to have you here, and by all means join me on Patreon. I always find something special to share with my patrons. This week it was about the fact that I couldn't write anything last week because I was so busy dealing with something really profound in myself that I actually had to realise I just have to put all my energy into looking after me. Profound, good stuff. But it's the story of that. Because it's relevant to God and me. My journey is kind of twined with this project. 1 week at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time sometimes.
is how we create ourselves, and so that's what I'm doing. Very much love. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.